If you were worried that maybe the Eagles weren't the same team as last year, guess what? You don't have to worry anymore. They are back, maybe even better than ever. Welcome to the Locked On NFL podcast.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, football fans? Welcome to the Locked On NFL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am Luke Braun here with Lauren Cox. It's Tuesday, and thank you so much to those of you who listen to this show every single day. You can find this show wherever you find your favorite podcasts, including the SXM app, and you can also go to SiriusXM to listen to live broadcasts, home broadcasts of whatever football game you are looking for. Today on the show, we've got a Monday night doubleheader to recap. We're talking about the Eagles beating the Bucs, the Bengals squeaking one out against the Rams. I wouldn't say squeaking one out against the Rams. The score, it was not as close as the score implied. And then, of course, it's Tuesday, which means we get Yike and Like of the week. But let's start with the Philadelphia Eagles, NFC champions, just stunting on the Buccaneers by the end of it. And the thing that really scared me about the Eagles as a fan of another NFC team last year was that they could beat you however, that if you solved one of their problems, that they could just completely transition into something else. And that Eagles run game with DeAndre Swift is just lethal. It is genuinely a run game that you go into the game going, oh my God, how do we get it so they don't run for 9 a pop on us? And then I guess we'll worry about the pass game. Like, how backwards is that?
It's just nice to be talking about a Swift that's DeAndre this time. This is great.
Well, we'll get there.
It's a nice change of pace for me.
We'll get there. Don't worry.
No, right? But it does kind of feel like with the Eagles, it's like it feels like Frieza and Dragon Ball Z. It's like, you fool, this isn't even my final form. You know what I mean? Like, we're still playing with Krillin and Gohan, and like you haven't like, you know what I mean? Like, we're just pulling like, you know, firing off and killing different Saiyans across the place. It's just like, oh well, this is easy for me. Like I'm not even trying that hard at this point. Like, yes, of course they're trying that hard, but like we haven't seen them really like open up their deep passing game fully. Like we certainly see flashes of it, right? But it doesn't feel like as much of like the explosive plays through the air quite the same way. Like I know they got a big one to Zacchaeus in this game, and Brown had one downfield, but like it's not like the high flying level of Eagles offense that we've seen in the past where it feels like, wow, that can go to that next level because they haven't needed to. Like, I think that's one thing that we can kind of get lost in sometimes in the fantasy football and I'm not throwing analytics.
Oh, where'd AJ Brown go? Yeah.
Well, no, but even just like this idea that like, you know, EPA and stuff is all about trying to score as many points as possible. But sometimes the goal isn't to score as many points as possible, but it's to just score more than your opponent and maybe show them as little as possible or do as little as possible to win the game, as to not, you know, show your hand or exhaust all of your different options there. So if you can just hand it off to DeAndre Swift for 130 yards at 8 yards a clip and not have to uncork it deep all the time, good. Do it that way.
Yeah,
like
call it till they stop you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I think it is well, they can't stop it, so let's just keep doing it. And if they do start to stop it, yeah, we got all this other stuff we can go to, but why bother? I wonder how this season progresses for the Eagles because of that, because eventually somebody is going to start loading things up and, you know, really prioritizing and saying, all right, well, at least we'll make them do the harder thing, right? We'll make them make hard throws. We'll make them do that. And I wonder just what kind of things we get to see from the Eagles in that situation. What are they going to bust out in response to that? And I think that's really exciting. But I look at this is a really big moment, I think, for the Eagles, in a way that's not like just another Eagles win. I really think this one matters because they won. I mean, they're 3-0, right? They won their other 2 games, and they've gone up against 3 defenses that are largely the same structure coming off of a Belichick tree, very blitz heavy, very man match cover 7, very, very aggressive defenses. And in week 1, they struggled with that aggression. And in week 2, they struggled with that aggression. They ran the ball, but they couldn't pass the ball week 2 against the Vikings. And everybody's going, is Jalen Hurts cooked? What's going on? And in this game, they showed enough where it feels like they figured that out. So whatever Bill Belichick did to him in week 1, They showed in this game that they've solved that problem. I think that is huge. I think that is not only just, okay, look, there's not a blueprint to beat us. You're going to have to come find something else. I don't know who their week 4 opponent is offhand, but now they probably can't just copy stuff that the Bucs and the Patriots and the Vikings did. They've got to go come up with their own thing, which is a hard position to be in. But it also just kind of shows, hey, if you figure something out that gives us trouble, that thing isn't going to keep giving us trouble. We're going to figure that out too. And you're going to have to kind of keep throwing changeups at us to stop us. That makes them a really, really, really tough out come January and February.
Yeah, it also feels like the path forward from here is fairly easy. Like this team may be 6-0 heading into week 7 against the Miami Dolphins. Their next game is the Commanders, which they're 2-1, but I'm not necessarily a huge believer in there. Then it's at Rams and at Jets. Like these are not.
Oh wow, yeah,
it's not high quality points.
Division games are always going to be tough, but I guess the next real test we see, because they have the Commanders. Oh, they've got the Dolphins and then Commanders and Cowboys. That'll be an interesting stretch as well. But I don't know. It's a good moment I think to be an Eagles fan, because you're seeing the team answer a whole bunch of questions. Hey, can you win against this kind of thing? Yes, we just did 3 times. Hey, can you win just on the ground if Jalen Hurts isn't on tonight? Yes, we absolutely can. Can you win through the air if the running game gets stopped? Well, here's a whole bunch of deep passes to Zacchaeus or whatever. Yeah, we can do that too. Here's a great throw from Jalen Hurts. So it's just whatever question you throw at the Eagles, they have an answer for it.
Yeah, and it just seems to me like it's picking up where they left off last season, right? I mean, it's not exactly where they were. It's just like ramping back up. Like you said, this is a good time to be a Philadelphia Eagles fan. It's been a good time to be a Philadelphia Eagles fan a lot over the last handful of years. Only a couple of down moments in between there, but you got to.
Where do we feel the Buccaneers are then? Because are they frauds? Or, I mean, how do we feel about their 2 wins? They beat the Vikings, they beat the Bears, and then they get boat raced here. So how do we feel about this Baker Mayfield Bucs thing? Kind of went into the season not really expecting anything from them. Do we still have to pay attention?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't come away super impressed by the Buccaneers, even when they beat the Bears in that game. I didn't watch a ton of the Vikings-Buccaneers game, but I felt like that Buccaneers-Bears game was probably closer than it should have been, and that the Bears were able to put a little bit of a scare in them towards the end, and even the 10-point deficit was kind of aided by a pick 6 that was basically thrown in the end zone. So, I mean, to me, I wasn't super impressed by any of the teams they beat, and I didn't think they'd put up much of a fight against the Eagles. Does that mean they're frauds? Not necessarily. I mean, they might still win their division by default, because it's not. I mean, Saints
right
so far, but
we'll see about Derek Carr's health and all that. I think that division is really interesting.
It is. I think they could be a playoff team, but I think clearly this game showed us that the Buccaneers are not in the same caliber as the true Super Bowl contenders, right? They're not on the level of the Eagles there, but they might be in that, that playoff caliber team, but not Super Bowl caliber team tier.
Yeah, I think week 1 was their best week. From watching this game and then comparing it to what I saw when they watched when they played the Vikings, I thought they played well in that game against the Vikings. I thought they did well, deserved the win. Against whatever the Bears are going through right now, okay, we'll just kind of set that aside. I think it'll be important to see how they respond, right? All right, you got your teeth kicked in. Let's see what kind of leadership we're getting out of, Baker Mayfield and the sort of elder statesman defenders that have been there forever. And if they can put something together that does make a run at a division that is pretty gosh darn wide open. Bengals and Rams also played on Monday night, and the Bengals finally got their revenge for the Super Bowl a couple of years ago in a pretty grindy game. So we'll see if we can take anything out of that next.
This episode of Locked On NFL is brought to you by our friends at Nutrafol. You don't have to choose between better hair growth and your health, because Nutrafol provides a whole body health approach for men that promotes healthier hair. No drugs, no compromises, just better hair. I don't want to just speak for Luke, but I think both of our Locked NFL hosts today have some nice hair working for us on the top of our heads. I think two hands.
You can't see the back.
Well, that's where our friends at Nutrafol come in. Maybe you're listening to this podcast, you're watching on YouTube, and you're thinking, yeah, you can't see the back. Maybe I should be worried about the back a little here. Well, Nutrafol is going to be the best way to do it. You go to Nutrafol.com/men. You can take their hair health wellness quiz, and they'll identify causes of your thinning hair and then give you a personalized plan for better hair health through whole body wellness. And it works. In a clinical study, 84% of men showed improvement in their hair after 6 months of taking Nutrafol Men hair growth supplements. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month's subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter in our promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men, and enter the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code LOCKEDONNFL.
Thanks so much for those of you who listen to the show every day. Hey, after this one, why don't you go check out Locked On Sports Today if you're a fan of shows like this, which are the biggest stories in the NFL, but still covered by people who are so familiar with that locality. Locked On Sports Today is that, but for all sports. So go check it out. Let's get into Bengals Rams, the second of the 2 games on Monday night. I still don't love the Monday night doubleheader thing. I think it's a little bit too hard. I don't like having to switch between the 2 games. The point of primetime is that we all watch it together, right? But I'm just belly aching. The point of this is that it was a pretty low scoring game for 2 offenses that are, the McVay high flying thing and the Burrow Jamar Chase. And while we got some pretty sick moments from Burrow and Chase in this game, and the Bengals really quiet throughout most of it until they finally kind of figured something out. They got Joe Mixon going a little bit. They got the ball to Jamar Chase. This feels to me like the Bengals really gritting through a game where they were not playing their best. And I'm not super familiar. I didn't really watch the other 2 games, so I can't really speak to if they've always been like this or if this was a worse game than those were or whatever. But just kind of vibing it out. I think part of the Bengals' appeal as a team is that they can kind of find that game where, look, T. Higgins wasn't having a great day. We weren't doing all that great on the back end. We let up a whole bunch of really open Puka Nacua catches, right? There was all these little things that some guys were just off tonight, but we still found a way. 4 field goals at the end, a touchdown at the end of the day. That was it. And a 16-19 win with a very garbage time touchdown. They needed an onside kick. So it was not as exciting down the stretch as that would imply. But I feel like it's a big moment for the Bengals. Avoid that 0-3 hole and all that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you wondered about Joe Burrow being out there, right? It's like when he's not looking still like
right.
Joe Burrow.
He's not 100% for sure.
Deep accuracy was not there. I mean, I know he hit one deep one, I think, to Jamar Chase, and there were a couple I don't know if you want where you draw the line between intermediate and deep, but like downfield passing was not abundant in this offense. And kind of like we talked about with the Eagles before, where it's like still not their final form, right? Like we know with a healthy Joe Burrow that this team can be a lot better. The question is, can they still get a healthy Joe Burrow? Like, can he keep playing in these games and get healthier at the same time, or is playing in these games keeping him from fully recovering because you're putting more stress on the quad or the calf or whatever? I get the leg parts mixed up in the one he's dealing with, but like the leg in general, like is it putting more strain and more stress on that to keep it from fully recovering? And then are you just going to get hobbled Joe Burrow for the rest of the season until you at least get to your week 7 bye week and hope it gets better from there? But you couldn't just sit him down and take an 0-3 start to the season. Like you need to give yourself some confidence, remind the team like, hey, we're still really good. We're not that far removed from being a Super Bowl team here, like really not that far removed at all. And like still a lot of the same pieces. Like the pieces are there, like the coaching staff is there. It's about being healthy and about guys kind of finding it again. And even an ugly kind of low scoring game where it's not your full offense, like at least it could give you a little bit of something to say, yeah, okay, wait a minute. This is like Joe's still really good. It's just not healthy. And Jamar Chase, of course, is still really good. Like this all still works. The formula is still intact.
Yeah. A calf injury, by the way, for Joe Burrow. Calf strain from earlier in camp when he pulled up and it looked like he tore his Achilles, but still kind of battling through that. And then on the other side, the Rams fall to 1-2. And here's what I think about the Rams. The Rams are fascinating because they were pegged as the worst team in the league. And they were one of the worst teams in the league last year. And I think people kind of forgot that Stafford was coming back because they don't look like the worst team in the league. Yeah, they're 1-2. And a couple of tough losses. But but I don't see them as the same way I'm looking at the Cardinals at 1-2, where you're like, well, I just don't really need to pay attention, or the way that we can look at, say, sorry, Lord, but the Bears, where you're like, it's not happening over there. I see the Rams as a team kind of in that same world as I see the Bucs, where I say, all right, this is a team that maybe they can scrape their way into a playoff spot. And I look at them and I look at teams like the Bengals or the Eagles that feel like, all right, those teams are just going to be in the playoffs. Be super surprised if the Bengals weren't in the playoffs. I don't care that they started 0-2. Like those teams, we're going to be watching them in January. And so it kind of, for them, their season is, how do we kind of get ready for January? What the Bengals do now, totally irrelevant, as long as they don't put themselves in so deep of a hole that they can't make the playoffs or win their division. What they do, what they start doing by December, and kind of the momentum that they're on and the strategies that they're really employing by the time it actually gets to the elimination games, is what's going to define how this Bengals season is remembered. But if you think about the Rams and the Bucs, it is kind of every little moment counts, because they're not going to have games that they can just stroll in and steamroll. Like the Eagles will just have those games where they can, this is a lesser team. We've got the Jets. We're going to kill them. Goodbye. They won't have any easy games on the schedule outside of, like, there's no easy games, of course, ever for anybody. But I guess with these teams that are sort of, I would say the Rams are a middle team, and that's good. That was better than their expectation was. But I think it hurts to not get this one, because I think they're going to need it.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the Rams, as they squeeze everything they possibly can out of the talent that they have. Like when you're close, you really got to get everyone that you can. Because I mean, it feels to me like there's some parallel here of sort of like Stafford being the reverse Joe Burrow here, where we're kind of expecting like eventually the elbow is going to break down again, right? Like after how much sort of hype and discussion there was last season about Stafford's not healthy and that it's kind of a long-term thing and it's kind of the beginning of the end, and like they kind of, you know, hobbled him along through the end of last season, and we weren't sure how healthy he would be to even start this season. And like, okay, looks pretty good, and you got a couple of receivers that are standing up, but like offensive line's really not that great, and they haven't been able to run the ball super consistently, and certainly defensively outside Aaron Donald, like they're getting more out of the guys that they have, but can they do that for 17 games and enough to make the playoffs in a division that has obviously a really good 49ers team and a Seahawks team that can make some noise and do some damage, and all of a sudden a Cardinals team that might not be totally abysmal, but probably still going to be pretty bad. Like it's going to be tough sledding for the Rams. And I just wonder, like, can McVay coaching magic his way to all of it? Or at some point, does your lack of consistency and proven talent, like, eventually catch up with you?
Yeah. Can someone figure out how to punish the Rams for their two receivers being Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell?
You think?
I don't want to drop like a hate bomb on those guys. They're playing well. Good for you guys. You're finding holes in the zones. You're doing your assignments. No shade on that, right? But yeah, is there there's got to be a counter for that forces those guys to do something harder. And they haven't found that yet. And that's hard to find against McVay. He's kind of good at this.
Yeah. That's the ultimate edge in this sport, right? Like, I mean, that's what can separate a team like that and help you overcome not having first round draft picks and effing them picks. But also, I guess, right, having a guy like Aaron Donald in the middle makes everyone's job a little bit easier.
Yeah, big game for Aaron Donald for sure. The Aaron Donald demise was greatly exaggerated in that I'm sure someone talked about it somewhere. And they shouldn't have. Speaking of things that people shouldn't have done, let's get into our yike and like, something we liked and something that made us say one singular yike. That'll be next.
This episode of Locked On NFL is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And now is the time to snap into action with this NFL season, because new customers can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Literally, $5 on anything. Pick your spread, pick your money line, pick your over-under for any of the games. There's a bunch of great close spreads on FanDuel for this week. Packers-Lions is just 1.5. Rams-Colts is 1.5. A bunch of 3-point spreads as well. Ravens-Browns is 2.5. A lot of different fun games to get in on this week. And if you bet just $5 on any of them, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. So if you've been thinking about FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action, all in an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Of course, it's not just football. There's baseball playoffs right around the corner. WNBA already underway, and of course, the NBA season coming up right around the corner. And again, it's a $5 bet on any of them, and you're going to get $200 in bonus bets. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with 200 bonus bet dollars. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
It's time, Lauren, for our favorite Tuesday tradition, Yike and Like, something that we liked about this week and something that made us say yike. You can start with whichever you want, but you take the honors of going first.
I'll start positive, and I'll say my like of the week is like, I don't know how to summarize it succinctly, but like underappreciated quarterbacks making the most of their opportunity, particularly two of them, Josh Dobbs leading the Arizona Cardinals to beat the Dallas Cowboys when no one expected them to win that game, and no one expected Josh Dobbs to like actually hold his own and manage the game really well for a team.
Nobody expected that to be close
3 weeks ago. I mean, he had like 4 incomplete passes all game. He wasn't lighting it up with huge, downfield passes to light up the secondary or whatever, but like for a guy who is there to lose, I mean, who everyone perceives as being there to lose games for them, like for him to stick it to him and give a win is great. And then also Gardner Minshew with the Indianapolis Colts. Minshew mania against a playoff team, and both of them against playoff teams, but against a good Ravens team that Lamar Jackson's been playing well. Like Minshew stuck it out. Again, it's not 50-yard bombs downfield and him single-handedly carrying his team to victory, but like no one thought Minshew would come into the game and win that. I mean, he was not the plan. These guys were not plan A. They're not brought in because they thought they were going to be the ones to carry these teams to a bunch of victories, but they found a way, and they're two guys that I'm rooting for and certainly love watching both of them succeed.
Yeah, it's very fun. This is not a game that is played on paper, right? And every game starts 0-0, and even if you don't think you have a chance, you have an opportunity. And maybe that's a way to put it. Go win the game, right? Game 0-0. Go out there and do what you do. I'm going to start on the negative side, mostly because I think my like is best saved for last. But here's something that bugs me. I've seen a lot of people do it. There's one tweet that I don't even know if it's real from somebody who's claiming to have sources inside multiple organizations that think that the 70-point drumming by Mike McDaniel on Sean Payton was like disrespectful and that they were running up the score or whatever. I take so much issue with that idea. For one, correct me if I'm wrong, Lauren, but I don't think Sean Payton himself took issue with the Dolphins scoring that much. He took a lot of issue with allowing that much in his press conference after that game. But I don't think he said, they shouldn't have run the score up on me. And honestly, of all people, Sean Payton is going to respect the disrespect, right? That's who he is. And on the other side of the coin, he's absolutely running that thing up. I think he knows the score. And I think, I don't even know if you can say that Miami did run up the score. They pulled their starters by quarter 3. They were running the ball, and those runs just kept going explosive. Like, what do you want the running backs to slide? Like, get out of here. And I believe they had a chance to set the points record with a field goal at the end. They could have lined up and tried to kick to get 73 points, which I think it was 72 when the Bears beat Washington way back in like 1950 or whatever that was. So I think they could have actually gotten into the history books, which I think is absolutely a worthwhile thing to go after, but no, they knelt it out. That's respect, right? So I don't think you can even say that. But even if you could, people who complain about running up the score, I'm sorry, are soft. Get out of here. You know what? You don't want them to run up the score on you? There are 11 people who you're paying a lot of money to try to prevent that, and some coaches. So you have all the tools in your toolbox right there for you to prevent the score from getting run up. You have control over it. You can do everything you can about it. And if they run it up on you, get good.
Especially it being Sean Payton, and with all the smack he talked about Nathaniel Hackett's coaching job in Denver and it being the worst.
He suffers the worst loss they've had in years and years.
Yeah,
and years.
like I know he walked it back afterwards, but like still, like he said it, and I'm sure he meant it when he said it, and then realized it was bad to say. But like, of all the guys who deserves being run up on a little bit. I think like, he broke the unwritten rule of coaching first, right? If there's an unwritten rule, you don't run up the score. Well, he broke the unwritten rule of you don't talk crap about the previous coaching staff. So you kind of reap what you sow a little bit there. It's like me reaping, me sowing tweet, like that was Sean.
Exactly.
All right. My yike of the week then is the discourse around being down 8 or 2-point conversions. It was a combination of two things. It was one, Josh McDaniels of the Raiders down 8, kicking a field goal when he had, I think it was 4th and goal at like the 3, which instead of going for it, trying to score
4th and 5.
Yeah. But takes the field goal to make it a 5-point game to then onside kick it to try and get it back and score again. And afterwards he said, well, we needed 2 scores. And everyone points out, well, no, you score a touchdown and go for 2. That's 8 points and you tie it. And then, yes, that agreed. But I think from his perspective, it was you needed 2 scores to win. They could have tied it there, but they still needed to score again to win. So if I need to score again to win either way, then I might as well kick the field goal. I mean, he should have gone for 2 and gone for it on 4th down. But like it just feels like a dumb circular argument we get in there. And then in the Packers game against the Saints, Packers are down 14. They score a touchdown. Matt LaFleur goes for 2 to make it 11-17 and gets it. And I know many of Packers fans that were in the stadium that were furious that they went for 2. And they were absolutely floored and thought, I'm not ready to fire Matt LaFleur, but like, what are we doing here? Like ready to boo. Of course they get it.
Oh, goodness gracious.
They score another touchdown. They win the game by 1 because they went for 2 earlier. And it's like, again, like we're not having good discourse around the 2-point. We're still trying to figure out, I think we as the general public, how the math works on this. And the old school idea is always take the points. Well, don't take the points if you're Josh McDaniels in that case in the terms of the field goal, but do take the points if you're Matt LaFleur. Like we gotta find where we're winning, where we're taking the points here. We got to get on the same page.
I love that you found a way to get a dig at Packers fans in on this. I think that's really strong podcasting. Let me end on a note of positivity. My goes to Swifties, the Taylor Swift people that have joined us in the ranks of football fandom. Welcome, Swifties. I have a feeling that some of you are listening to a football podcast for the first time. And if you've chosen us, I adore you. Obviously, because of the Taylor Swift showing up to a Chiefs game to root on Travis Kelce. It's this big story. Could do without it on the broadcast. I don't really need Joe Buck to describe this to me. This is not, I mean, celebrities go to football games all the time. It's not that weird. But watching people who have never in their life paid attention to football, try earnestly to learn the game, and I mean this without a shred of irony, brings me so much joy. I absolutely love, for whatever reason you're getting into football, watching people come in and be like, okay, so can you tell me what a down is? So they can run and they can pass, and just learning that extra stuff and people going through genuine curiosity. And I think that's really cool. I don't think we have enough curiosity in the football landscape. I think everybody thinks they all have everything figured out, right? We all predict the games and we all have our fantasy and we all think that we're the experts. There's not enough curiosity in football. And I feel like the Swifties have brought curiosity just because they want to learn. They just want to get to know it. And I think there's something very wholesome and pure about that. It rocks. Yeah.
The fresh perspective can sometimes help you look at things a different way. It's like, yeah, well, why do they get 4 downs, or why do they do it? Why? And then it's it can help you sort of rethink something you've just automatically sort of assumed, or something you've automatically your brain just thinks is automatic. And maybe you can think about it in a slightly different way and maybe approach it a slightly different way and get a new perspective. I do see the value in that, despite being thoroughly annoyed by watching the entire broadcast of Greg Olsen and Kevin Burkhardt talk about Taylor Swift. And so as
Joe Buck, you can leave that at home, but
as a football fan and someone who watches the games, I hated it. As a broadcaster, I knew how thankful they were to have that to talk about in a game that was 34-0 at halftime. They would have
been, we need Madden to bring out the buckets. It's
yes, they would have been telling stories from Greg Olsen's college days if they didn't have Taylor Swift to talk about. So I for them, I am grateful on their behalf for them to have the storyline, but as a viewer, I got enough of it.
Yeah. Call out to any Swiftie that wants to know more about football. I'm here for you. You can ask me anything, no stupid questions. You can find me at Luke Brown NFL, and you can find Lauren Cox at Cox Sports 1. Tomorrow, you get Tony and James And of course, go check out Peter Bukowski on Locked On Sports today. We'll see you all tomorrow on Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.